Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rutherford County Board of Education. This is a regular meeting that we're having tonight. Our first order of business, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance, led tonight by our Transportation Director, Mr. Craig Snell. Mike. Craig Snell was a sheriff 50 years ago.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike. We would ask, the board would ask the group of people here to join us in a moment of silence, and a very special person that we want to kind of recognize tonight passed away. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd like for the board and our audience to take a moment to think about Bill McPeak. His formal name was William McPeak, but he was a beloved American history teacher at Smyrna, and I think he epitomized what all teachers try to earn, and that's the respect and the remembrance of their students for the rest of our lives. And Bill certainly was that person. So if you would, appreciate everybody remembering him tonight.
Join us in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next item of business, number 4, board, on your agenda sheet there. Approval of the agenda. We didn't move anything last night, and so I need, last night it was, wasn't it? I need beg pardon, Mr. Hodge says approve. Second, Mr. Blair. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Next order of business, one that we just absolutely love to do. If a Riverdale principal would come forward. Mr. Nance, always great to see you. We get to honor the Riverdale High School girls basketball team, most of whom I've seen play since they were in the 5th or 6th grade, somewhere in that area. But at any rate, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll turn it over to you for a few minutes. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Odom, school board members. We sincerely appreciate being able to come up here and do this. This is our third year in a row for a state championship in girls, so we're very excited, very proud of what they've done. We're hoping to maybe get another one, but I'm going to actually turn over to Coach Kaufman and have his team come up here and surround him to share a little bit about what transpired this season.
For camera purposes, could they come right up here?
Sure.
If you will, and kind of face the audience.
That little gold ball in the middle there. We've got room out here, put it in a trophy case if y'all are out of room.
Good-looking bunch of young ladies, and even more talented on the basketball court. Very proud to be a part of them. Mr. Jeff, appreciate you having us up. Board, we appreciate you having us up. Starts at the top and works its way down. We can't do what we do at the level that we do it if we don't have the support, first, of our school board, and then right down to our principals and athletic directors, and then I have a great assistant coaching staff. So this is not certainly about me, but it's about these girls up here in front of me. Been a great year for us. You guys have allowed us to play a national schedule this season, and to be able to do that at the highest level, it was the ultimate challenge for these kids. I remember sitting down as the year started. They were defending national champions this past season. Graduated an outstanding player at the University of Tennessee, and a 6th Man of the Year in the SEC this past season. And a lot of high expectation back for this group. And we went out and we made a national schedule that was the toughest in the country this year. We had the toughest strength of schedule rating. I remember setting them down, looking at them, saying, look, guys, I'm just telling you right now, when you call anybody, we're going to just, you better get ready. Because we did not schedule to be undefeated. And we weren't. This group went through a schedule that included 7 nationally ranked teams. We competed in Arizona in the biggest high school tournament in the country, and this group came out on top. 36 out of 37 times. So very proud of them.
Coach Kaufman, would you have these young ladies introduce themselves, please?
Yeah, they were really, I talked to them about that earlier, Chairman, and I made sure they understood that we had to keep this thing to 2 minutes or less for each one of them. That most of these people, however, they're very proud of them. There's other things we're going to go on tonight as well. So we'll just have each one of them come up. If you will, tell them your name, your position, and what class you're in. We got a great group coming back as well. Very proud of them. They're not that shy, I'm telling you.
Okay. Madison Henniger, small forward, sophomore.
I'm Briley Puckett. I'm a small forward and I'm a senior.
TK Golf. Oh, sorry.
Dynamite is small package, that's all I'm saying.
TK Golf, point guard, and I'm a freshman.
Hi, I'm Jalen Holcomb. I'm a point guard and shooting guard, and I'm a junior. I'm Allie Mayu. I'm a small forward, and I'm a senior.
Hi, I'm Hannah Edgeston. I'm a shooting guard, and I'm a junior.
Hi, I'm Aislinn. I'm a point guard and I'm a junior.
Hi, I'm Alasia Hayes. I'm a shooting guard and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Caitlin Worley. I'm a center and I'm a sophomore.
Hi, I'm Alexis Whittington. I'm a guard and I'm a senior.
I'm Lauren Hosford, and I'm a shooting guard and a freshman.
Hi, I'm Kennedy Moore. I'm a small forward and a senior.
I'm Amanda Whittington. I'm a shooting guard and I'm a senior.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm a manager and I am a sophomore.
Crystal Horton, and I'm assistant coach.
Jamie Arnold, and I'm assistant coach.
So we sincerely appreciate you guys doing this because it's great to have the recognition, and we're very proud of what they've done and their accomplishment. And like I said, 3 years in a row, that's a tough feat for any team, but it's been kept in Rutherford County for several years now. So like I said, we appreciate you guys' support and what you do, and thank you very much.
Just one word, because I heard Brian Barrett say it on the radio. 3 years, Coach, 105 wins and 5 losses. I'm in the neighborhood. It's 103, 105 and 5, something like that. How did you manage to lose 5 with an outstanding group of young people?
That guy got in the way.
Coach and Mr. Nance, thank you both very much. Thank you, young ladies. We're delighted that you all could join us tonight, and thanks for continuing that tradition of another state championship for Rutherford County and for Riverdale. Board comments?
Congratulations. Great job.
Yes. Thank you. Give them a second. Or the nights that when we do the art, music, and drama recognitions, and our athletics and other areas are just nights when this board really loves it. We really do, and particularly when we start talking about test scores. We love that too. Next order of business on your agenda are the visitors, and we have a number of visitors tonight. I want to remind the visitors, and I'll call on Violet, I believe it's Saylor, S-A-Y-L-E-R, is that right? If you'd come forward, please, I'd appreciate it. I want to remind all the visitors that, first of all, to give their name and address, and they have a maximum of 3 minutes. Also like to remind all visitors tonight and in the future as well that we are here to hear a normal complaint, perhaps, or a concern or whatever, but we're not here to bash anybody, and we're not going to have it, and we haven't had it in a long time, so I just thought I would tell everybody that. And Ms. Saylor, your 3 minutes hadn't started yet, but it has right now, so go ahead.
My name is Violet Sawyer. I live at 4174 High Ship Road, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I am a very concerned taxpayer tonight because I understand that you're going to vote for a superintendent. Knowing that I know about Mr. Spurlock, I'm not sure that he's a proper person for our children, being that they're supposed to learn to trust and be honest, and he's not done that. And
Ms. Saylor, excuse me. I apologize. As I said before, we've got freedom of speech in this country, okay? But we're not going to use the boardroom to slam someone.
I understand that, but I have to know. You have to know why I want to not vote him in.
No, ma'am, I don't really necessarily need to know that. I apologize to you again, but we have a system and procedures that you go through, and the director is right here, and he's here every day.
And I did speak with the director on this because my grandson was one of them, a special needs student that went through some problems with Mr. Spurlock in a very unprofessional way. And that's why I'm scared for my other grandchildren to be under him as a superintendent.
Okay, can you cut your remarks off right there, please?
And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Wireman? Very well, thank you. Ms. Pamela King? Ms. King, welcome.
I'm Pam King, and I live at 609 Federal Court in Murfreesboro.
Thank you, welcome.
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Odom, and school board members, thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. As a taxpayer and great-grandmother of 23 children, many of whom are in the school system, I believe the selection of our next director of schools is more important than any decision you will make as a board for a long time. After listening to your discussion last night's work session, I feel compelled to point out that you and the citizens of our community, in my opinion, that the process for this search was flawed long before serious issues of integrity and suitability about one of the candidates came out in the press. It was only then that holes were found in the process, and that was used to screen these candidates to begin with. Allow me to explain. For anyone in this community that is either involved or even just paying attention, it has been very well known that at least 3, if not more, of our board members had already determined long ago who they were going to put into this key position. Their minds were made up before they even had a clue who the final candidates would be. It is also well known that most of our school board, including our chairman, when interviewed by the press, made statements that a local candidate was preferred. These things alone severely tainted the process to begin with. And as Mr. Jordan pointed out last night, even the TSBA has admitted the pool will be larger next time. For that reason, both outside and local candidates may be hesitant to apply. It should be noted that we are left with only 3 local white male candidates. Aside from one candidate from out of town that pulled herself out of consideration, we are left with no one from the outside to consider. No women, and certainly no minorities. So was this search really as thorough as it should have been? Please understand, I am absolutely not suggesting that none of these candidates would be good for this position, simply that you, the board, and the search firm did not operate the search with due diligence and seriousness that was due. Rutherford County Board members, you have a weighty responsibility to everyone in this community to make this decision with integrity and a true desire to find the absolute best candidate for a very large school system. If you as a board are going to step up and do the right thing, you will start this process over, period. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. King. Mr. Tony Hudson. Mr. Hudson, welcome. Your name and address, please.
Tony Hudson, 690 Fosterville Road, Bell Buckle, Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
I'm here as a pastor and as a parent. I've had 3 to graduate from Oakland High School. Middle Tennessee Baptist Church has a large bus ministry for the last 24 years. We picked up children from every public high school in our county, middle schools, elementary schools as well. And during that time, I've had 3 to graduate from Oakland High School, and 1 that went through his 10th grade year and then transferred to Riverdale. As a pastor, I want to speak concerning the character of Bill Spurlock, exemplary, top of the line, Christian man, without question. And then I want to speak concerning his quality as an educator. Though I'm not an educator, I've seen children through the years come to our church that were under his authority and under his tutorship. Not one complaint did we ever have of any parent, and I had some complaints from others throughout the years. Not one time did a question ever arise concerning his ability to teach, his ability to exercise his role as a principal. In fact, everything that's ever been said has been in a positive light, never one time a negative light. I speak concerning the 3 that graduated from Oakland from my own home, and never had one time did I question the decisions that he made. We backed him. I pastor now previous graduates from Oakland and others that went to school and played ball as well with Bill Spurlock as a coach. No complaints, all positive comments, and I'm pastoring now present students of Oakland. Never one time as a parent even questioned his qualifications. And so as Middle Tennessee Baptist Church leader and many that represent in this room tonight, we stand with Bill Spurlock. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Mr. James McCarroll.
Good evening. My name is James McCarroll. I'm a resident of Murfreesboro, 311 Trenton Court, here in the beautiful city of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I come on behalf of the concerns with the student Trevin Brown at Blackman High School. Good evening. Would first and foremost like to thank you for the work that you and those that you represent do on a daily basis to ensure that our county students are experiencing the quality education that they both deserve and need. While you're at the helm, we're doing our best to provide a tailwind that will co-labor with you through our affirmation, celebration, and support of those same students within our spheres of influence. As a school district, it's necessary that both parents and the students, parents of the students and the community at large be able to trust its performance and administration at several different levels. None is more important than the following of policies and protocols. We want to know that the schools are compliant at every level with the policies and procedures that have been outlined by this august body for the purpose of maintaining discipline, uniformity, equality, and safety in the halls as well as the front offices. Unfortunately, tonight I do not know that we can say that our school district has not disappointed us in this regard concerning the actions surrounding the case of Trevin Brown. I'm deeply concerned that the protocols that were put into place to objectively assess the emotional and mental state of the student were disregarded and replaced with a subjective decision that was more knee-jerk than accurate. Though I understand the desire to protect the safety of the other students in a relatively gun-sensitized educational environment in our country, I also believe that the policies are instituted to ensure that every student also receives the same level of protection from the administration, especially in emotional moments such as this one. The expulsion of a student without proper review is nothing less than a saddening display of personal response, not professional response. For the student, it's nothing less than an embarrassing, disheartening, and emotionally wounding experience with the school district that desires to operate with the greatest integrity possible before its parents, community, and most of all, its students. On this 50th anniversary of the assassination of our beloved Dr. Martin Luther King, I'd like to recommend that Trevin Brown's decision be immediately reversed by the school and school district until a proper evaluation is done and the results are objectively reviewed, at which time a proper decision can be made. Without such efforts, we risk opening a Pandora's box of Lone Ranger, above-the-law decision-making that nullifies the very protocols that have been designed to protect our students, faculties, and schools. Also, we risk setting a precedent of unjust, out-of-order claims that not only affect school attendance, but risk leaving a stain on the reputation of the students that don't deserve them. Thank you for hearing my concerns, and I would highly recommend on behalf of the clergy of the Interdenominational Alliance of Ministers here in Murfreesboro that we reconsider Trevin's decision. God bless you all. Have a wonderful evening, and for the record, I'm a small forward for First Baptist Church.
Oh. Amelia Luna. Luna, welcome. Could you state your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Amy Luna. Address is 526 North Walnut, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I am an attorney with the Legal Aid Society here in Murfreesboro. And Legal Aid has been representing Mr. Brown, and you heard from Pastor McCarroll a little bit about Mr. Brown and the situation. We've been trying to help him to be allowed back into Blackman High School. Just late this afternoon, I received a letter from the Rutherford County School Attorney, Lauren Bush, informing us that he was originally denied a rehearing, but that he would receive a disciplinary hearing, that they would review that the board would be reviewing that. So we just found that out today. But this review will not take place until April the 19th. And while we appreciate that he's now getting a review, Mr. Brown is a senior, and while he's waiting for this review, which will not come until April 19th, he's going to be missing many important school functions that he's not going to be able to, senior functions that he's not going to be able to participate in. Due to this, we're asking that that he be allowed back to school immediately. We don't have to wait to the 19th. If this can't be accomplished, we would ask that the review take place much sooner than April the 19th. Or that if it's not going to take sooner, that he be able to participate in the senior functions while he awaits this review. If the review does take place, we would ask that we be able to participate on behalf of Mr. Brown. You know, school shootings are an extremely sensitive subject, and it shouldn't be taken lightly, and I'm not suggesting that at all. But if teachers are going to lead discussions on subjects like this, the teachers and the students need to be educated of the seriousness of these issues, and all the parties involved need to learn how to properly communicate these techniques openly and respectfully. And so another outcome that we would like to see is assemblies to educate students and faculty on how to communicate, how to report if there's potential threats, warnings communicated to students, that even innocent comments may be construed as threatening. Mr. Brown, he's been a good kid. He's been on the football team. He's received decent grades. He's obtained a scholarship to Cumberland University. We're not looking at somebody that's been expelled numerous times, who's been in and out of trouble. You know, and now he's in an alternative school and missing out on a lot of the senior functions. So accordingly, we would ask that the board let him back into the high school, and alternatively that he be able to participate in the school functions if he's not let back in immediately. And then finally, we request that education be provided to the students and teachers regarding facilitating these types of discussions. Thank you.
If you just hold it right there for just a second. I'm not familiar with this at all, so please understand that. And we wouldn't normally be familiar with it unless it was appealed to the board, which is really what you're asking for. And
I think been granted the appeal, right?
Okay, and that's the 19th? All right. Well, we have to have 2 days' notice to announce these things, isn't that correct? Which means it would have to be Friday, which I'm going to tell you now is impossible. It's certainly impossible for me. Is there some reason that we could not do this on our director's search night on the 11th, which we'll know pretty soon whether we need that night or not, which would be the 11th, which is about the best we can do.
You first have to vote to whether you're going to grant the hearing or stand on the disciplinary hearing committee, so that's your decision.
Right. And then
it's been through the disciplinary hearing committee.
Okay.
So your vote is to whether to grant the hearing or...
We haven't read any information on it.
Well, today I received a letter, if I may speak.
Yes, please.
We received a letter from Attorney Bush stating that they would now grant the review of that disciplinary hearing, but that date will not happen until April the 19th. So, and I'm not sure if you're Miss Bush.
I am.
Hi, nice to see you in person. Sorry, we've been communicating on email and phone. So if the board would consider a much sooner date, we would thoroughly appreciate that, and because that would definitely help.
Okay, let me do this. At the end of tonight's meeting, we have a board discussion, which we can bring up anything we want.
Yes, sir.
So now they know. At least we're going to have to do something here.
Yes,
so we'll discuss it during that time. Now that may be an hour, that may be 2 hours, but we'll do it.
And I apologize for my ignorance. Is that something that I should stay and be present for, or that board meeting is just between the members?
Oh, no, it'll be an open meeting. Everything here is open.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I believe that was all of our visitors. Ms. Michaels, is that right? Okay, all right. Number 7, Director of Schools position, and the floor is open for discussion, motions by any board member. Ms. Moore?
Chairman, thank you. I do have a motion I'd like to put on the floor, but I wanted to make sure there was no other discussion by any other board members first. Of course, I stated and I went over this in my reasoning last night in our work session, so I won't waste everyone's time belaboring what I said last night. But I would like to read an email that I received. Of course, we've all received hundreds of them, and we've been bombarded. And it's made this process even that much more difficult, although we certainly always welcome community input. But in regards to my recommendation to the board last night that we needed to look at starting this search over, I received this email last night when I got home, and it's actually from, and obviously I can't disclose his name, but it's from a teacher, actually a high school teacher here in the Rutherford County system, and I'm just going to read this to you. It's very brief. It says, Ms. Moore, thank you for your words tonight and the courage to enter into the conversation about the search for director of schools. Admittedly, there was a moment before your articulate words that I sunk with disappointment and disbelief that no board member would speak to this issue. You gave me hope for our school board, recognizing that the knowledge of deficiencies with the search process presents a moral obligation to start over, regardless of the possible logistical challenges or issues created in executing the restart is the kind of leadership both needed and desired. Thank you again. So with that, I am going to put a motion on the floor that the board address stopping the process and starting the search over again.
Now we did, I'm going to comment on the email. And I will say in preface to that email, I'm going to vote for that motion. But that email was wrong. We had an extensive discussion on that last night, did we not?
Oh, well, yeah, we did. But I think he was indicating even before that. But.
Okay. Okay. Board, you need a second for your motion.
I'll second the motion with the caveat that I am interested in the discussion, but not certain of my vote.
Other comments from board members?
I believe that we gave TSBA specific instructions how we wanted this to be conducted. And in coming here and second guessing ourselves on those instructions, is a little late. So I really believe that we did our due diligence. We ask a system that has done maybe hundreds of these for school boards across the state. So they certainly are professional and attempt to be as thorough as possible. And I believe tonight we should vote.
Any other comments from board members? Want to read the motion again? Would you read the motion again?
The motion is that the board vote to stop the process and restart the search for the director of schools over again.
Okay, does any board member need, I went over this last night with you as far as the dates are concerned, and if this should pass, we would start tomorrow morning. The Tennessee School Board Association would, if we started over, and I gave you the dates. I won't reiterate those now, but if you have questions, I will. If not, any further comments?
I'll make the further comment that it's certainly been pointed out by members of the community and visitors' comments tonight, and I think that it is relevant that it may be that TSBA handed us exactly what the board expressed interest in, which turned out to be 3 internal candidates. There were numerous statements about that, public statements that gave that impression, and we discussed openly last night how if we restart this process, we expect that it would be a more open and more candidates involved in it. There were parts of this process that are certainly worth re-examination. I have great concerns about moving forward.
Other comments from board
Mr.
members?
Chairman, if I may, just
yes.
in response to Mr. Blair's comments, and with all due respect, and again, as someone that has over 30 years of human resources and search background, yeah, we do certainly have a level of responsibility in this. And yes, indeed, the TSBA is a professional organization that is very experienced in doing this. So when we made the decision to hire the TSBA to do the search for us, I never even considered or was concerned about just assuming that they know how to do this type of search, that things would be looked at during this search process that involve things to me as an HR person would be standard in any search such as this, such as reviewing people's personnel files, asking questions of the references. It's my understanding that references were contacted, but only the references that the candidates provided, which is also not something that's standard in a search for a position such as this. And it's also my understanding, again, that not only did they not look at personnel files or request records, they didn't look at anything in these candidates' files, nor did they ask the question of any of the candidates or of anyone that they interviewed here in the school system in regards to anything that might be in those personnel files in terms of grievances or disciplinary actions. And to me, that's just an extraordinary disappointment in how this search was conducted, and I think that in itself gives the merit that we should start over. And again, I want to reiterate once again that I am not suggesting that any of these candidates are not the best person for this position, simply that we didn't do our job right to begin with, and we should start over.
Mr. Young.
Ms. Moore, I talked to Randall Bennett today, and I asked him about the process. And he assured me that the process was not flawed, and he also assured me that these candidates was vetted through the Rutherford County school system. And he even called our superintendent to ask questions and got the approval from our superintendent that these 3 candidates was eligible. So the process was followed.
Well, and Mr. Young, I had a very different conversation with Mr. Bennett a couple of weeks ago when he told me that if they had to do it over again, they would have looked at various things that they did not. So I appreciate and respect the fact that you had that conversation, but mine with him was very different.
Ms. Michaels? I think we ought to call the roll on this one. So,
No. No.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Young?
No.
Mr. Sherman?
yes.
Motion passed. 4 noes, 2 yes. 3 yes, excuse me.
4-3. Are there other motions from board members? Every opportunity, this is, as we all are aware, and I assume everybody in the room is aware, this decision will have a great deal to do with next 2, 3, 4 years of Rutherford County schools and leadership. I want to give you every opportunity to ask a question or make a motion if you desire to do so.
Procedurally, Mr. Jordan, we spoke last night that the absence of a motion is not the end of item number 7, that we may move into a ranking process. Am I correct?
I missed that a word there. We move into the what process?
We may move into a ranking process.
That is correct. Once.
And continued discussion?
Yes. If we do not have, if the ranking is still incomplete.
Understood.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Michaels, you have ranking paperwork. I think we're ready to go. I bet this audience is ready to go.
Mr. Chairman?
They seem ready to go, yes.
Since we're going to be voting, before we vote, I have something that I'd like to read to the board and the audience.
Yes, please.
I'd like to disclose, first of all, that my husband works for the Rutherford County School System, and I also have a son that attends Central Magnet. I want to assure everyone that I'm going to be voting based on what I think is in the best interest of this school system.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes, sir. Many of you know my wife works at Oakland High School. She was hired by Butch Vaughn 12 years ago. She's been working at the high school before Mr. Spurlock became principal there. I want to disclose that and state I'm going to vote based upon my conscience for what I think is the best interest for the school system.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Mr. Reed, do you have a comment at this point?
I'll just add one thing. What we're doing here is ranking your candidates in order of preference, with your first choice for director of school as being number 1, your second choice being number 2, and your third choice being number 3. So this is not a vote. So this will not this is not going to be an action by the board to be a vote. This is a ranking, which will then tally, and Joyce Michaels and I will report back whether any of the candidates has a majority ranking as number 1. And then the board can take further action as you deem appropriate to nominate that person or take whatever other action the board wants to take.
Ms. Bush, would you assist, please? You taking up the...
Let's go out here. Yeah. We'll go count the rankings and come back here just in a couple of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, will this be the uncomfortable silence part of our meeting?
Well, I hope not uncomfortable.
Okay, anticipating.
Perhaps the Roy Waldron Drama Club is out in the lobby. Mr. Snell could do the pledge again if you'd like. That was a high point.
Under the correct name?
Mike Snell. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, they will not be long. There's only 7 ballots, so those are 3 smart people, so we'll be all right.
YouTube, but everything came back last night. They posted it up after. It wasn't live. They taped it as soon as on that.
And they ran it. Well, I got a lot of people, they said they watched it. They saw it.
They evidently went and posted it. 18.
Okay. Where Mr. McCarroll went. It looks like he's gone. I don't see him anywhere. Do you know him, Reverend McCarroll? State Street First Baptist Church?
Yeah.
We've been swapping out with him, and he came over and just led the prayer this last Wednesday night before Easter. But boy, when you get him and our preacher in the same room, man, I'm telling you what.
Somebody says amen. Watch out. It can go on a while, couldn't it?
Yeah. And I've heard him. I've heard him 4 or 5 times. He gave some pretty powerful stuff, and I was really worried when we went over. You met over at their church. Church. We cranked it up. Our choir did. I mean, our preacher did. I mean, he was fire and brimstone, but usually with that boy, do you know the case? What do you do?
Posted it. It's a picture of it.
Was he 0 tolerance out, or?
I think he was.
I understand.
After you read, same thing.
Right.
He is receiving it. High school. Kids. Run in the theater.
Yeah. People just do kids and foolish things. We do. And I did them too, I'm afraid. But it was a different time. It was a different time with a lot of things. Appreciate you.
Do anything. Why do we need to do anything tonight? Yeah. Right, so, yeah.
Activities and graduation.
He's not even a DHA. They just hadn't had to fill it yet. It hadn't gotten to us yet.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Yeah, and we're creeping up on the thing.
Riverdale girls team.
He can't walk in.
Entire starting 5 made the alternate tent.
Oh, that's right.
Mr. Reed.
So the results of the rankings with regard to the choice of the number one candidate, Spurlock has 4 rankings as number 1. Ash has 3 rankings as number 1. So Spurlock has 4 rankings as a top choice as a director of schools.
So in order to offer Mr. Spurlock this job, which I'm pretty sure he's going to accept, we need to have a motion from someone and a second that we do that. So the floor is open for a motion.
Chairman, I'd like to make the motion that we offer Bill Spurlock, Director of Schools for Rutherford County.
Thank you, Mr. Young. A second from someone.
Second.
That was Mr. Estes. Yes, sir.
The motion is inappropriate in that the motion should be to enter into exclusive negotiations with the candidate and not to offer the job. Am I right, Mr. Reed?
I think that the terminology is semantics at that point. I think what we're talking about doing, if we're offering a job to any of the candidates, what we're talking about doing is negotiating with them for a contract. So that contract will then have to come back to the board and be approved by the board. So when I hear the motion, which is to offer a position to any of the candidates at that point, that will be, at that point, start a process by which we will have a contract worked up, which this board will review, will be presented to the candidate. Both parties, the board and the candidate, has to agree to the terms of the contract. So ultimately, it will come back to this board to vote on whether you approve entering into a contract with the director of schools. So when I hear the motion tonight, I think what we're talking about is just entering the process of starting the exclusive negotiations with the candidate for the contract.
Thank you for the clarification.
Further comment?
Yes, sir. I have been concerned about this candidacy for some time, and it is not a candidacy that I can support. There are issues that we have determined upon examination of personnel records in Rutherford County Schools, and Mr. Reed, I would ask if you would, can you speak to the examination that you made of the personnel records and accuracies that are enclosed there?
I think as all of us has read in the paper, there have been issues with respect to some of the candidates with Mr. Spurlock's personnel record in regards to an issue he had in Georgia that occurred 30 years ago. That was a long time ago. There has been, at one point, as Mr. Spurlock has disclosed, his Georgia teaching license was suspended for a short period of time. It was later on reinstated by the state of Georgia. Thereafter, during the time that he has filed applications with Rutherford County's school system, there have been times where it was not disclosed that there was a prior suspension in Mr. Spurlock's record from Georgia. So those are the issues that we've talked about, and has been something been in the newspaper and been reported. The state of Tennessee has shows on his licensing that the matter was cleared in 2016, and again today the state of Tennessee issued a clearance on a hold with respect to Mr. Spurlock's license, saying that the matter from the state of Tennessee standpoint has been cleared.
When you examined the documents, was this an omission, or was this a statement that the license had never been suspended?
When someone applies for a renewal of their license with the state of Tennessee, or applies for an administrator's license, there's a set of standard questions that you're asked. Those questions are along the lines: do you have felonies? Have you had? One of the questions is, have you ever had your teacher license suspended? So, and with respect to the renewals that were filled out, the renewals applications say, no, I have not had any suspensions. And that's what has happened with Mr. Spurlock's record. Whether that was intentional or omission, I can't say. You have to ask Mr. Spurlock that. I will say it was a matter that was 30 years ago with respect to Georgia when the original offense occurred. Mr. Spurlock has disclosed it occurred, has talked to the media about it, and talked to the newspaper about it, and I talked to many of your board members about it. So it's something you all have been aware of and were aware of before the vote tonight. So I think what you do with the information you get there is up to each individual board member to decide whether you want to support Mr. Spurlock or not support Mr. Spurlock as an individual board member decision based on that information. But from a state of Tennessee standpoint, the matter has been cleared. From a state of Tennessee licensing standpoint.
Any other comments from any other board member? We have a motion and a second. Ms. Michaels, are you ready to call the roll again? Okay. You want to read the motion again? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Estes?
Yes.
Ms. Moore? No. Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Holliday?
No.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Sturman?
Yes.
Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
5 yes, 2 no.
Okay. I don't believe we have anything else tonight. Mr. Reed, where do we go from here now? As far I know, you and I have to meet with Mr. Spurlock and another board member or two, or what do we do?
What we've done previously, we've usually used the existing director of schools contract and presented that to the incoming potential director for their review, for any kind of comments or suggested revisions they may have with it. We'll then bring that back to the board, and the board at that time will have a chance to add additional provisions that the board may want to add to that contract. And then at that point, we'll take those back to the candidate and see if there's agreement with respect to those terms. If so, once we think we have an agreement from both the board standpoint and Mr. Spurlock's standpoint, then we will present the contract back to the board for approval.
Mr. Reed, it's my understanding that this is one of the exclusive times when the board can operate in executive session in negotiations on this contract. Is that correct?
You can do that, yes.
And in the past, have we done that?
You have not done that.
I remember being in the conference room next to the director's office negotiating Don Odom's contract and reviewing it in executive session.
Okay, your memory may be better than mine on it. I don't remember us doing executive session. If the board wants to do it in executive session, and that's the will of the board, the majority of the board members, I think it's up to the board to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I would request that we review the contract in executive session.
That would not be tonight.
That would not be tonight. The contracts, our initial step is to present the existing contract that we have with Mr. Odom to Mr. Spurlock and say this is the template we're working from. And then we'll get input from the board members and we can talk to the board about what additional changes or provisions you want to that contract and talk to Mr. Spurlock about it to try to reach an agreement in regards to it.
Take a motion to do executive session for that. He didn't make a motion. I'm just asking. He said he was making a request. The answer to that is no.
Yeah, no.
Now, can he make a motion?
He can make a motion.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the board negotiate this contract in executive session.
Need a second to that motion, please.
Second.
Comments?
I guess the question I got, what's your reasoning?
There are issues that the board continues to be unfamiliar with that could impact the employment of the director of schools, and I believe that it is in the board and the candidate's best interest that those issues be discussed in executive session.
I really don't know what issues you're talking about. I mean, I can read the contract just like you can.
Mr. Chairman, could we find out from Mr. Reed, and I'm not talking about tonight, but at a later date, that if, in fact, we did meet in executive session 5 years ago, and if we didn't, then I'll vote no on if there's a motion for executive session. But if there was, you know, that's fine, but I would like to know that before we actually have a vote.
Well, unfortunately, we've got a motion and a second on the floor, and they would have to be withdrawn. I have no objection either way.
Mr. Reed, is just a question for you, if I may, and I don't know how much, if any, employment law you've done or had experience with, but I know we have other attorneys here that have. Is it not just very commonplace when you're hiring an executive with a contract, that contracts are always reviewed, especially when it's been this long since one has been written, that it would be reviewed, and whoever the hiring body is would have the opportunity to recommend and suggest changes, and I certainly think that's all that Mr. Holliday is suggesting. So,
yeah, I think that's entirely appropriate, and I think whatever form the contract you want to make is acceptable. So to the extent you want to make changes to what Mr. Odom had in his contract, I think the board is free to do that. So, and plug those in. So with respect to the specific changes you want, I'm glad to try to work those in the contract, and the board will have an opportunity actually to put those in the contract should the board choose to do that, and we can present those to Mr. Spurlock.
We could send you any change or desire that we have, and we wouldn't need to meet in executive session.
You can send them to me. I can plug them in the contract. We can bring the contract back to the board, discuss it at a board meeting, discuss about whether the merits are there for the particular provisions we're talking about doing, and then at that point, whatever
employment circumstances.
I cannot tell you the reason between the legislature allowing that to happen. You know, usually when we're in executive session, we're talking about some sort of ongoing litigation matter the School Board of Education is involved with. This is a director of school search. And everything's been open about it, and it's taking place in the open meeting here. I don't see any reason that the contract cannot be negotiated fairly in an open meeting.
I see reason why the negotiations should be in executive session, and the state legislature agrees. They give us 3 provisions. If we have ongoing litigation, if we are negotiating a contract with the director of schools, or if we are examining our security policies. Those are the opportunities we have to meet in executive session, and I do not understand why this board would not avail themselves to that in this circumstance.
It will be a board decision to make, so whatever the will of the majority of the board members are, that's the determining factor on it.
Mr. Reed, is there a reason that the decision has to, or the vote has to be made tonight on this subject?
It does not have to be made tonight, no.
In this process, the board has come to additional knowledge that they did not have when they started. Likewise, we should use every possibility to not be surprised in the future.
I don't understand where you're coming from, Mr. Holliday. I mean, you got the contract right there.
The contract that we have is for
transparent on everything else. Be transparent in here on the contract.
The contract that we have is for Don Odom.
I understand that, but look at the last 2 contracts we've had and see how they work. Look at Harry Gill's contract. You know, I can sit right here and be transparent, and you know, if there's something I don't like, I'll let you know. But I don't understand what the reasoning is for going into executive session on it.
For the privacy of the candidate.
What do you mean privacy of the candidate? Be public with it.
Nothing else has been private. That's for sure.
Call for questions, Mr. Jordan.
Okay, the motion remains on the floor. The question's been called for. That doesn't need a second. We need to vote. Ms. Michaels, would you call the roll?
Mr. Blair?
No.
Mr. Estes?
No.
Ms. Moore? Yes. Mr. Hodge?
No.
Mr. Holliday?
Yes. No.
Mr. Jordan?
No.
5 noes, 2 yes.
Mr. Chairman, could I suggest a recess here in a few minutes to allow the audience and the newly elected director of schools to greet supporters and board members?
You can suggest that if you'd like.
Okay. Well, I'm suggesting it.
Are you in fact suggesting it?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm a former school teacher. We're going to start back in 5 minutes.
Clear the room a little.
Yeah, and maybe the air too.
They can sure dream up crap. I tell you what. I hate it. Thank you. You're the one on the firing line every day.
No, you're having to be in the teacher seat tonight.
No. You almost stepped on the line tonight. You almost stepped over the line tonight. Yeah, close. What now?
Can that little video, quick 30 seconds?
No. Maybe the director can read real fast.
I'm in a small church group Wednesday morning, and I go to Blackman United Methodist Church. Yeah. Where do you live, Blackman? Bert and I brother. Cool. I don't live far. I live in 1 mile. I live close to Tom Nolan. Look at my eyes, and we're rolling. Congratulations, sir. What's your response to the board deciding to offer you the position to be resident?
I'd like to say that all candidates are very
Okay. Thank you.
been very successful in their position.
I know it.
I do thank the board for it. You trusted me.
Read fast. I've got a dinner at 7:30.
You know, it's been 30 years. This thing's been hung on my head. And I've been, there's things been said about me that are untrue. But I'm not a rock combining people to come together. I can bring people together. We've had a very successful school system. I can go back to Mr. Furlong.
Okay. Well, I don't care either. Am I away?
Dr. Ragsdale,
I'm done, man.
And I can see each one of them get blocked and move our system forward.
Okay. So noted. Thank you.
We're the fourth largest system in the state of Tennessee.
Enjoy your trip back to Bedford County. Thank you.
We do real well. There's some things we can improve upon. And we have the people within our system, teachers, administration. We have people in the community that help us along and get where we want to be.
Congratulations. Thank you, sir.
Well, hang in here with me. Discuss that. Did she stay? We don't know if she stayed or not. Yeah, I know. She wanted us. Why did she want to meet her? Well, we're not going to do that. People are not going to talk to them.
This is the most exciting
I appreciate it.
have one like this.
Okay.
You want the sauce?
No, don't.
Happy not to.
Yeah.
One change remains.
30 seconds, 30 seconds. You're welcome to stay. Booming headache when this is over with. Welcome back, everyone. We'll go to number 8 on your list. We didn't move anything off the consent agenda last night, so I need a motion to approve that in a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Blair, thank you. A second.
Second.
Mr. Estes, thank you. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll go to number 9, instructional materials. Mr. Director.
Okay, this is, number 9 is Section C, Instructional Materials Adoption for Fine Arts. The Fine Arts Committees are recommending adoption of the following text for the Section C Instructional Materials Adoption Cycle. The adopted text will go into effect for 2018-19 school year and will be at the district's adopted fine arts text for a 6-year period. I'll be glad to read all of the books again tonight if you would like. Actually, same, no changes from last night. And again, the motion for number 9 is recommend approval, motion to approve Section C instructional materials adoption for fine arts.
Questions for the director? Motion to approve, I think, of Mr. Estes, is that right? Or Mr. Hodge, I'm sorry. A second?
Second.
Mr. Young, thank you. Comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 10.
Number 10 is textbook adoption report ED 5009 and textbook certificate of adoption report ED 2153. This is for driver's education. Once again, school systems are required to submit textbook adoptions annually on forms provided by the Tennessee Department of Education. The high school textbook committees are recommending the purchase of driver's ed textbook listed below for use beginning 2018-19 through 2022-23, and it's one book called Drive Right. Recommend approval, the motion to approve the driver's ed textbook adoption for high school as presented.
So moved. Second.
That was Mr. Estes, and a second from Mr. Blair. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Number 11.
Number 11 is the textbook adoption report ED 5009 and textbook certificate of adoption report ED 2153. This is for the health and wellness. And again, school systems are required to submit these textbook adoptions annually on forms provided with Tennessee Department of Education. This one will also go through the 2022-23 school year. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve the health textbooks adoption for middle and high schools as presented.
Questions for the director? Need a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Hodge, a second. Ms. Moore, thank you. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Mr. Director?
Number 12 is the textbook adoption report ED 5009 and textbook certificate of adoption report ED 2153 for science. Again, the school systems are required to submit textbook adoptions annually on forms provided by the Tennessee Department of Education, and this includes elementary, middle, and high school textbook committees. I recommended the purchase of science textbooks listed for use beginning 2018-19 through 2022-23. There is one that was not on there written out last night. The committee was voting, did bring it to us before we left, is Biology 1, and that's on your printed copy this evening, and it is a biology textbook. That's one of the ELC courses by Pearson, and then the others were the same as last evening. Recommend approval, the motion to approve the science textbooks adoption for elementary, middle, and high schools as presented.
Questions from the board?
I'll move.
Mr. Estes, thank you. A second?
Second.
Young, I believe. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Number 13.
Number 13 is the facilities, and this is Rockville High School change order number 1. Barton Mallow Company has submitted change order number 1 in the amount of $800,000 for extra work at Rockville High School. These funds will be held as a contingency for an unforeseen $500,000 Murfreesboro Water and Sewer Department sewer line extension to our property line at the west side, and a $300,000 change for all metal deck, fireproofing, fire doors, and hardware that were added by the State Fire Marshal's Office in the plan review process. This changes a contract amount from $62,784,500 to $63,584,500. Any unused portion of these funds will be returned to the Rutherford County Schools through a deductive change order. These funds have previously been amended into the construction budget. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve change order number 1 to Barton Mallow in the amount of $800,000 for Rockville High School as presented.
Mr. Clardy, I'm sorry, Mr. Blair. You go ahead.
I was just going to make the motion.
Go ahead.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Mr. Young, thank you. Mr. Clardy's, of course, here again. We heard his explanation last night. And are there any further questions for him or the director? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Summer school.
This is the 2018 summer school calendar. The instruction department is requesting approval of the 2018 summer school calendar. plans are for high school course offerings. The high school site will be Blackman High School. High school first semester course offerings will be from May 29th through June 22nd, 2018, while the second semester will be scheduled from June 25th through July 20th, 2018. Transportation services are not provided, and tuition will remain at $100 per 1/2 credit for high school courses and $200 for driver's education. And I don't think you've increased this amount in years. It's been the same. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve the instruction department's request for the summer school sites and calendar as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Young, thank you. A second?
Second.
Mr. Holliday, thank you. Any comments or questions about summer school? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Number 15, proposed Rutherford County Schools calendar, tab 4.
And this is for the 2019-20 school year because so many people are wanting to book cruises and other vacations and things that far out. I thought it would be a good service to our community. So I recommend approval. The motion is to approve the Rutherford County Schools 2019-2020 academic calendar as presented.
Second. Was that Mr. Hodge or Mr. Estes? Mr. Hodge, seconded by Mr. Blair. All in favor, please say aye. If there are no questions, aye. Anybody opposed? Next.
Number 16 is Career and Technical Education, EPP Specialist Job Description. This is for your information. My contract, which you'll see, says that any new positions, you have to approve the position for that, and you did that when she came forward with the grant at the time and said it would require a position at that time to be added. So again, the job description, and as we get more information from the Department of Education, this is brand new territory. We're trying to design a certification licensure process for people coming from private into teaching, that are teaching career and technical education courses. You know, the state actually reached out for us and said, would y'all be willing to do this? I mean, they've tried it other places, and this is really a big bite to chew. But hopefully the state, we can get this accomplished to make it so much easier for not only Rutherford County, but other counties in Tennessee, trying to move people again from private sector career and technical jobs or performances into teaching without it costing them 18 additional credit hours, university hours, that's not covered by any pay. So we can do more of this job embedded. I actually think it'll be a stronger program if we can design it around what they do. But anyway, that's that job description. If you've got other suggestions or things, please contact Ms. Pilgrim, Mr. Brian Lewis over there. Look at it, and again, we'll keep you informed and updated. If the state says now you need to add this, we actually work with MTSU and with the State Department of Education doing this, the licensure people, and again said we think this is what we need right now to get this done, but it may change over the next 2-3 years.
Any questions for the director? 17, insurance. Anything? We have some materials from last night that we did review. Ms. Stanley, did you want to add anything on insurance from last night? Okay, moving on. Director's update.
Nothing new this evening.
Nothing new. Ms. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
I think we may have mentioned this at the last meeting, but I did want to let everyone know, I don't remember the exact date that it passed, that the bill that was presented by Senator Ketchum and Representative Rudd to place a 2-year moratorium on adding any testing for the state was passed, and it's my understanding that the governor has signed off on it.
Well, I did not see that today, but I knew it was moving through. But
and it may not be, but I don't think they're anticipating any problems, and it certainly passed the full House and Senate. So, and also, as we mentioned or touched on briefly last night, the bill that was being put forward for consideration to arm teachers in the state of Tennessee has basically fallen off the radar and is off the table, I guess, for now.
Failed in committee, I believe.
I did.
Anything else, Ms. Moore?
Yes, sir.
Questions from Ms. Moore? Mr. Holliday, federal.
Will stand as presented last evening.
Okay, that brings us to general discussion by board members. And Ms. Luna, I appreciate you and my friend the Reverend hanging around. I believe, well, maybe not. He's not here, but you're here. I apologize. I may have misunderstood, and that's my fault, of where we were in this process with this young man, who I do not know. But the director and I have talked briefly here. And you may want to comment, Director Odom, he is an alternative school. And
right. I'm modified to the alternative school. So what you're asking for is return to the activities at Blackman High. But remember our process. Once the disciplinary hearing committee that has been conducted, they made a ruling, and then that was upheld, that particular disciplinary action. It then comes to you for appeal, or comes to me, which I modified so he could stay in school. They would come to you, but you'll have to read the report, I think, of the disciplinary hearing committee probably before you can vote whether or not you want to grant a new hearing or whether you uphold the disciplinary hearing committee. And you do not have that document tonight in your hands.
I couldn't do it anyway.
You know, I mean, if you follow your policy, policy is pretty explicit in that then you have to decide. So they really remain in the placement, which I have the right to modify to the alternative school, which is statutory. So that's what I have done. So the next step on your policy and statutory would be appeal to the board, if I'm incorrect.
That's correct. That is correct.
Ms. Bush, so I think you've got to do that step. Time frame to do that step is availability, of course.
Right. Now, Ms. Lynn, are you familiar with the process there, with the paperwork that is brought for each student?
Yes, Your Honor. And we are sorry. I'm used to. I apologize.
I'm far from that.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Really?
The next step is the meeting on the 19th, and that's why we would respectfully ask that take place a little bit sooner, because we are at the end of the year, and it's going to be over with, and all of this will be new at that point.
And I understand that. I just want you to know the materials that we look at is a thorough explanation, and I guess I do this for the audience as much as yourself, maybe, but a thorough explanation from Blackman High School. Is that right? Is that where he was?
Yes.
Okay, of what happened, all right, and how they handled it when it happened. Witnesses, the whole thing, whatever is in there. And it's like this thick. And it's everything, grades, attendance, family life, witnesses, his statement. He's given every opportunity to defend himself. Okay, I'm going to put it to you that way. And the three people, I don't know who they were, but that were part of the discipline committee at that point, but they are without question, and the ones that we've reviewed this year, what have we renewed? 3 or 4 have been appealed to us maybe in the last 12 months. Those 3 people are excellent. I mean, they're just, trying to follow the law and treat the student this way. I'm not really making excuses here. I just want you to know what that paperwork is. We don't have that. And we wouldn't have it until the meeting before we were going to make some sort of decision, right? So we'd have time to study it, because it takes a couple of hours a lot of times to look through the whole thing. Depends on how long it is. So that's where we are now. Now, my question to my board here is, do we want to make some adjustments? And Mr. Director, do you have a comment on that? Or,
I think it's up to you as to when, any meeting you could, I don't think it'll take the hearing committee too long to do the transcript, which they typically do.
Yeah, they can get it turned around in about a week.
That paperwork that I just referred to, that's not ready yet? We don't know.
Mr. Delbridge is working on it.
Okay. Well, I don't really know where to go from here, but I do know that we had a meeting scheduled for April 11th, a special call director's search, and we're clearly not going to need that meeting. So, board, the floor is open for ideas, suggestions, and I'm begging you to save me here.
We may need that meeting in order to openly negotiate the contract.
Well, we could do both on the same night. Just saying, I'm just making suggestions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Protocol is normally, though, that we do these review of hearings at a standard scheduled board meeting, correct? We get the information at the work session the night before, and then the board renders its decision at the actual board meeting the following night.
That is what, the way we normally do it. That is correct. We get the material on the work session night, and usually we have 24 hours, or most of the time 48 hours. You're right. And which, as she has repeatedly said, gets us to the April 19th.
So if it's going to take a week to get the transcript prepared, would we even be able to have the time for review before the 11th if we did agree to do this at a special call board meeting versus a regularly scheduled board meeting?
Well, can't answer that one, but that's next Wednesday.
Correct.
I don't know, and I don't think Ms. Bush knows. Why would she? Mr. Delbridge is the man with the paperwork. Mr. Reed?
We normally have not scheduled special meetings to hear appeals. So if we're treating someone differently, somebody can say, you've done this for one person, why are you not doing it for them? So if we make an exception for this individual, the argument can be made, you have to make it again for some other individual, and that's not something we've typically done before. Now, if we're going to go ahead and meet on the 11th for a contract for some other reason, to look at the contract or whatever, maybe you can take it up. But we don't have any precedent of scheduling special meetings to review these initial appeals from a disciplinary hearing authority. You do need to be careful about treating everyone equally.
We requested this over a week ago, and if it had been granted at the time we requested, we could have the hearing tonight.
And I can speak to that. During the hearing, typically, Mr. Delbridge discloses you have 5 days from the date of this hearing to appeal to Mr. Odom as the office it goes to for written review. This request came in a day after that 5 days. So initially, we did say you're outside of the 5 days. Unfortunately, it's not going to be appealable in this situation. Given our policies and consistency, for consistency's sake, Ms. Luna responded with a very thoughtfully written letter, and in that case, because of how our policy is worded, it says notification, that there's a letter that also goes out on top of that hearing, and Ms. Luna argued that the letter should serve as that notification instead of the verbiage stated during the hearing, which we do have a transcript for. Because of that, that's something we'll revisit in the policy committee meeting, but because of that verbiage, we decided to let them appeal to the 19th. So, like I said, if we would have considered it inconsistently, it would have been outside of the 5 days. And that's why we're here today.
Which also would have been a special exception then to the standard rules, correct?
Well, I think they're trying to err on the behalf of the student to give the student every opportunity to have review before this board. So they were not within the 5 days. The decision was announced the day of the hearing. So when the decision was made by the disciplinary hearing committee, it was announced that day. The appeal was not filed until 5 days after 5 days had passed since that date. That was initially why it was denied. To err, just to give the student the benefit of the doubt and allow them to come before you and present their case before you, it was decided to allow that to happen, to give you a chance to review that proceeding. So that's how it's coming to you now. And if you handle this in the normal course of events as if the appeal had been granted, it will be an agenda item for the 19th, for the meeting on the 19th. That's how you typically handle these matters.
And typically, you have to schedule the actual hearing at a different date than you do on normal board meeting.
Yeah,
you vote that night whether to grant the hearing or not, then you have to schedule the hearing.
Yeah, you have the opportunity of affirming the decision of the disciplinary hearing committee, overturning the decision, or granting a hearing on it. And if you have a hearing, you will not have a hearing that night. It'll be some later date that you come for the actual hearing on the underlying charges and whether or not they should be sustained or not. But the options that the board will have will be to affirm the decision of the disciplinary hearing committee, or overturn it or grant this hearing.
Saying we cannot give them an answer on the 19th if we get the paperwork on the 17th?
On the 19th, you can make a decision to affirm the decision of the disciplinary hearing authority, overturn that decision.
All right.
So, or have a full hearing before the board where witnesses are presented before the board from the school system side and from the parent side to advocate their position. Then the board will make a decision at that point.
Okay, I don't believe we've had a full hearing.
We've not had one in many years, actually. So usually, board action typically has been either to affirm or overturn the decision.
Mr. Chairman, I will let you know that my feelings are that we receive disclosure on the 17th and look at this matter on the 19th in that scheduled board meeting.
Board comments?
I would agree.
Ms. Luna, I'm sorry. I just don't see a way to do what you want. And student welfare is the number one concern of this board. I don't know how we can do that without granting special favors to this one person and violating our own policies. If an apology is necessary, I'm making it, at least for my part. Comment? Giving you every opportunity here.
Again, this is not a typical situation because we're not at the beginning of the year. I agree, protection of students and teachers are the most important thing, but also the rights of our students are very important too. And I think that by not allowing us to have this earlier, and with there being an earlier date, that could be a possibility that we're not looking out for the rights of the students, and especially in this particular case. And as the pastor spoke to earlier, this impacts the community. It's not just this student, but the community. And so that's why we're requesting that this be dealt with earlier rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you. General discussion on any other topic?
Mr. Chairman, do you intend to have a meeting to negotiate the contract for the director of schools?
Sure.
Thank you.
I guess I need to get with Mr. Reed on that and see if we can't pick a date. And since it's already on the schedule, the 11th would be just offhand a possible date. Mr. Reed's sort of nodding. We get back together. That is the next time we get back together. And that's a special call meeting for the director's search, and Ms. Michaels can change that to read however you want to read what we're going to discuss that night. That'll be our only topic, special call meeting. If that's all right with the board, we can do that. Would that be suitable?
I think we ought to establish some guidelines too, as far as if the board members want to make any recommendations for adjustments or changes. Now, it's my understanding, I believe we've already been sent a copy or a draft of the current contract.
Right.
As far as who we need to submit those to, because we need to be prepared in advance of that meeting to, I would think, to address any questions or recommendations that have been made for adjustments to the contract?
I would say, to the extent any of you have particular changes you want to make to the contract, I would say you email those to me, and then we can present those at the board meeting when we talk about it. So, and if you have things you have questions about, just mark them and we can talk about them that night. To the extent you have additional sections entirely, because you may have a whole different section you want to plug in this contract that we've not had previously. Send those to me and we'll present those to the board and talk about those and look at them as a board as a whole and make a decision on them.
So board, we'll plan on that to answer Mr. Holliday's question on Wednesday, April 11th, which is my wedding anniversary. My wife will love that.
She might.
Yeah, she might. That's exactly right. So true. Go to a meeting. You have a meeting? If that's all right with the board, then that's what we'll do. Are there other comments? General discussion, board members. If there's nothing else, then we're adjourned. Thank you, audience.